Hello, and welcome to the third commentary on this channel. And I had we have such a strange set of movies. It goes The Last Jedi, True Romance, and then The Fly. Utterly bizarre set of choices. And I have a feeling that most people, especially with True Romance, you should be like, what even is this movie? And it's like, gather round. And it's the same for The Fly. It's another one of those came out of nowhere things. But yeah, so first thing I should probably reference is the person I usually do the commentary with is currently too busy to be able to reach with this one. But I'm very certain he shall return. Regardless, I'm here with a different person this time. Someone who hasn't, I don't think you've been on my channel at all yet, even though I've been on yours quite a bit. I've actually done a commentary with you before on was it the Buffy movie? Yeah.
Yeah, we did the Buffy movie, and I mean, we've watched several movies together on stream before.
Yes, which is a whole cavalcade of fun, as well as many Buffy episodes. I talk about Buffy every once in a while. This is my Buffy friend, okay? I'm allowed to have individual pieces of media friends. But yes, how do you do?
Hello. Oh, I'm Ian, Passion of the Nerd. Yeah.
All right. Well, see, that's the kind of intro you want. You want someone to be like, "That's me." Yeah.
I'm known for being wordy.
Yes. So it's Halloween. That's when this releases. Spooky. All kinds of things happen. So we're like, what film do we choose? And we look at the whole catalog of horror films, and I don't even exactly know how, but we ended up with The Fly.
Well, you wanted to do The Thing, and I have a The Thing friend who would be maybe a little upset if I watched and recorded a commentary for The Thing without her. The internet and what we do is a very weird job. And my choice was 28 weeks later.
And The Fly somehow ended up being second choice.
And so we ended up on The Fly.
That still doesn't explain it, but I'm on board with it because I should probably get to the point where, the way this works, as per usual, is that this is just an intro. We're going to sync on a 3, 2, 1 sort of thing, and then you can all start the film along with this YouTube video and just listen to it. From what I understand, there's only one length of the film that exists, but the one we're using is 1:35:37, so as long as you got that one, you'll be fine. Sorry that there's a lack of these commentaries. I'm getting there. I don't want to release too many, because I know that people will be upset, like, you're working on these instead of main videos. It's not the case. But I'm going to try and do some more as time goes on, especially festive ones. We'll have a Christmas one for sure. No idea what that'll be yet, but I'm sure it'll be fun. But yes, are you ready?
I am ready.
On go. 3, 2, 1, go. And I already feel like this is an ancient piece of artwork. It's funny though, because I saw so many of these when I was younger, and it felt new then.
That was still slightly more modern than Star Wars, though, right?
I think so. I remember it looking a bit more cartoony with A New Hope. But these days, it's a huge affair. It's all very... Well, everyone's is. Everyone has to look really special with the making of and stuff. Welcome to The Fly. I was going to say, is there any kind of background you have with this film? Because mine's going to be very different from yours, I imagine.
Yeah, so I was actually alive when this movie was released. What was the year on this? 1986. So I was 7 years old. And I think this is one of the movies that my dad showed me too early. There's a lot of people... I know there's probably a lot of people in your audience that think, The Fly at 7? Who cares? But the thing is, it's different what you were exposed to in the 1980s.
I don't think so at all. This is a horrifying movie for certain people.
Yeah, it's very traumatic.
I think it earns the title horror for sure.
Are you a big horror fan?
Yes.
Yeah, see, I'm not really. At the time of this recording, It Chapter 2 is in the theaters, and I really want to go see it. But I can't get anyone to go with me, and I'm too scared to go to the movie by myself. So that gives you a sense of how I am with horror movies.
Yeah, and that film didn't really scare me. This is the thing, I am simultaneously a huge horror fan, but I get scared by barely any horror. And I'm constantly searching for that high. I've explained this before. I love getting scared by things.
Now, do you think that's like pornography? Like a numbness kind of thing where you get exposed to fear so much that, your the hypothalamus?
Yeah, that sounds like it would explain it, yeah. It's like you're like searching for other sources.
You develop a numbness to whatever the fear drug is and just need to keep chasing that dragon.
I was going to mention, by the way, that nice little opening shot was supposed to like be what a fly might see of the whole area, and it faded into like a real view. Nice little touch. Lots of nice little touches in this film.
Well, I mean, David Cronenberg.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? And like, I almost slipped into saying like, old movies, because if old movies are just better. But yeah, for me, I saw this, I think, against my parents' will. The way I saw a lot of movies, they were like sort of like a golden idol sort of thing. It's just like, you're not allowed to see this, and I was like, I have to see that now.
Yeah.
And this one I remembered. I think I only ever watched it once, but I've always remembered this film, and so it was nice sort of to see it again, because it's like, I guess, with different, more adult eyes, but still...
Well, we were talking about ubiquitous horror movies, and why this movie might be just under that threshold. And I'm not sure.
Oh, to be, like, being known?
Well, as opposed to like Alien or Predator and Aliens were both action horror movies, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But other movies of that time, why is this one not required reading in that same way? My
initial, like, first run through thing to go to would be like, it veers into the weird factor a bit. Unfortunately for it, because I actually think it's great, but I could totally see like a lot of people being like, "Ooh, this is too much. It's like a lot of creepy stuff happens. All the prosthetics." I could totally see a lot of people being like, "Nah," because the most of this film is the journey of him turning into a giant fly, versus Alien, where it's like a group of people we can relate to trying to survive an attack.
Yeah, and all being picked off. I mean, Alien may as well be, to grossly oversimplify, it's the horror we're familiar with. You've got Jason Voorhees killing everyone at camp.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the camp is the spaceship, and Jason Voorhees is the alien.
And funnily enough, I couldn't stand slashers. I found them boring.
Yeah, this kind of body horror. And that's all it is watching him fall apart, is the terror of it.
I mean, I still find this better than the standard slashers.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I think there's more substance in this film, as much of a weird word that is to choose. As I've said this before, when I was younger, I just saw all kinds of movies I shouldn't have. And slasher movies, I saw all kinds of killings from all these different medicines, and I was just like, nah. I think it was mainly because of all the cast being so stupid.
So, pretty weird first date. She meets him at a science conference, and he brings her home to his metal BDSM. She's
very trusting, because there's a lot of red flags already.
Right.
Like, severe red flags. I appreciate as well, like, the idea of just going with the flow because she's a journalist, I guess. But there is a bit of a like, wow, you really are banking on this working out. Do you really have like anything to go on? She said she was going to talk to more people in that party, and he was just like, I'll change the world. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, Jeff Goldblum just automatically emits a sort of natural kookiness anyway.
Yeah, he's like a kook, a charming kook. There's this weird combination. For a lot of people, anyway. Because that's the thing about it. Anyone who watches this post, Ragnarok and some other films, you should be like, he's in a dramatic role, trying to portray a character who's dealing with something horrific, when it's just like, that's Jeff Goldblum, though.
Yeah, it seems like his later career is built mostly on his Jeff Goldblum-ness, where here...
Yeah, I would just run with much more comedic, or at least just fun-loving and nonsensical.
Which I love. I love Thor Ragnarok. I can't actually think of a number of other things he's been in recently besides that.
Well, he had a cameo in the newest Jurassic World. That was embarrassing.
No, I meant real movies.
Oh yes, of course. I just find it fun that this is such a departure from what one might expect, I guess.
So that's obviously very sexy.
Yeah, so there's loads of that. Their relationship gets kick-started real, like, you do feel the fact that this movie has to get going.
Yeah.
The fact that we went from those two meeting, establishing what we're doing, running straight into a car. There's a lot of detail. They're taking advantage of their time, though. Like, he comments on being travel sick in the car. And obviously he's inventing something that's going to erase transport forever. So it's kind of like, maybe there's a small motivation in there.
Obviously, when we watch these things for the purposes of recording, the volume is turned way down.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, with the volume turned way down, he's a little more creepy.
Yeah, I can.
Those long stares and kind of biting his bottom lip while holding her stocking.
Yes.
Some of that Jeff Goldblum-ness gets negated, and it's just kind of a weird creeper.
So for a second there, I thought when I was seeing this again that he was going to be talking to like a Jarvis-type robot. I couldn't remember if that was going to be a thing or not. It was reminding me of how, like, with Iron Man, when you finally see all that Iron Man text, like, still impressive that Jarvis thing you have anyway. Like, AI is incredible. And all the other stuff, like, if we had another situation in this film where he's created this AI that can react to him, it's actually a pretty good interface regardless. I'm almost certain the only reason they had all of it recognizing his voice was for the payoff, if you will, later in the film where it stops recognizing his voice because he's changed too much.
That's a nice detail that pays off.
Yeah, I always like the. I think that they did pretty well with these interfaces. They're nice and clean and techy enough that I think that no matter how much time passes, the audience won't be too annoyed with it as being so archaic. But this film is totally a time capsule anyway.
Yeah, I mean, tech in any movie is a bit of a risk for auto-dating your film. There's, I remember seeing an interview with the director of Dr. Zhivago, and they talked about how hard they tried to get all of the details right, all of the outfits and every visual aspect they wanted to nail as part of the period. And he said, but we screwed one thing up, and it was the hairstyles.
I was actually going to say, the hair gives it away in this as well, like hardcore.
Yeah.
Everybody's got such old hair. It's wonderful in its own way, though. And I was going to say as well about the whole dating it to a degree. The telepods, very, very impactful to say the least. And it's funny, I remember them very well as being parodied as well. A lot of people like to pick up on them.
Well, I think it's kind of genius design because of the whole husk or egg idea and hatching out of yourself. I think it's wonderful that way. But I think the movie also kind of ages properly because it is of its time. So the DeLorean, for instance, looks like a car from the 1980s, but the movie is a piece that takes place in the 1980s. So it's not inappropriate that is the case.
And you get the cassettes, obviously, in this. There's a lot of references to different things. And the fact that it's kind of interesting to me that you could remake this now, not saying you should, but you could, and you could keep the story pretty much exactly the same because teleportation would still be just as impressive now as it is all the way back then. Probably will be still for another 100 years or whatever, but it's just cool that the story still works.
It's interesting. When I first watched this, it was my drunk on Star Trek The Next Generation phase of my media consumption.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that, as someone who wasn't particularly interested in horror, the thing that captivated me at the time was the teleporters.
Mm-hmm.
And which kind of made the horror of the movie even a little bit more intense because Star Trek is so hopeful and positive and all of this, and this is like...
No, this is not.
Yeah, the corrupting effects of technology and, the metaphor of him falling apart, which sort of stands for... At the time, the AIDS epidemic was hitting pretty heavily, and a lot of people read it as that, but I think Cronenberg said that Brundle falling apart was supposed to be more or less a metaphor for just us growing older and the way our bodies sort of shut down. Which has new resonance for me, having just turned 40.
Well, I was going to say, it's good. No one can escape the resonance of that, unfortunately.
No, but...
Perhaps that's another comment from the movie.
I was walking up the stairs the other day and suddenly shooting knee pain, and I went, oh, I'm definitely 40. And watching the movie is disturbing on an all-new level. Less about the teleporters.
Well, yeah, I think you commented on how, like, the process of aging is dehumanizing.
Right.
And so literally getting turned into a fly is quite possibly dehumanizing as well. And so it's very applicable. It's just that, yeah, obviously interpretations can go in many ways. But yeah, I just thought it was funny in that scene, by the way, she's recording him the second she finds out this is all, like, for real. And her little thing beeps. So she's like, oh, gotta take it out and replace it. I was just like, man, this really, like, they really needed to get it so that she presented to him that she was recording him. Which she said he knew she was a journalist.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be a natural reaction then to showing her revolutionary technology that'll change civilization forever. That she would be like, I kind of want to write a story about this.
Is this just his way of hitting on her?
Yeah, I guess he thought that.
Showing her this world-changing technology?
And he was hoping that she wouldn't
those corduroys?
do journalism things. Are they what? Sorry?
Sorry, I tend to get a little distracted by the fashion in movies. I think 2 people are wearing cords in this scene.
It was the style at the time.
It was indeed.
Oh yeah, and the playing the audio as well. I was just like, man, that was clean audio, considering it was this tape cassette recorder in her pocket.
In her pocket.
And yeah, the way he comments on how he created it is almost, you could argue, a hand wave in terms of technology. He asks several other specialists to create specialist gear, and he puts them together and they do X, Y, and Z to avoid probably trying to explain how this could possibly work.
Yeah, that's a scriptwriter sort of summarizing how all technology works. All technology is built on the shoulders of other inventions that came before it.
This scene, by the way, I read that the half of this was improv, or at least a lot of it, and a lot of Gina Davis's reactions are just genuine because she'd not heard this dialogue yet.
Huh.
And it was similarly to the piano. There were elements that Jeff Goldblum was trying to bring in to make this character seem a little bit more human, I guess, or add more character to him. But the fact that he plays piano means he likes music, means he's a bit more human than this cold logical robot trying to make a teleportation device, you know?
Well, there were a couple of scenes that were cut from the movie during screenings because they lowered the audience's empathy for Goldblum's character.
Oh yes, I know the one you're referring to.
Yeah, him creating other hybrids?
The cat baboon?
Yeah, the cat baboon.
Did you that scene's available on YouTube. You can find the one that we're referencing. I get it. You watch him. It's not really even a matter of putting it out of its misery, which I think would have tested better. He looks kind of vindictive when he kills it. And so a lot of people found that to be a bit much.
Yeah.
They were like, this guy's kind of a monster. And it's like, you're supposed to be like, this is sad. This is horrible.
Yeah, you don't want people to say good riddance about one of your 2 main characters.
I actually think they do kind of pretty much nail it. Like, once he becomes the full fly, you're on the verge of feeling sorry, and he just turns into a monster and then a literal monster. You know what I mean? Like, his plan to start purifying himself with other humans. He's like, oh, that's a villainous thing, and then he goes horrible anyway. And you're like, oh, he kind of is just gone.
Goldblum does a pretty wonderful job with the mania, and there are a couple of key lines that give away that he's losing anything but his id. I mean, a fly certainly isn't something that is overburdened with conscience and choice. And so I think the particular line is, have you ever heard of fly politics?
Yeah.
And the idea is he just is succumbing to a constant will that he has no control or choice over.
Yeah, it's a big warning,
Yeah.
that bit. And I mean, it's the most blatant when he just says, you need to go before I'll hurt you, basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, apparently her flushing the toilet was improv.
I wonder if that actually worked or if he was smart enough to pick up on the improv and went with it.
That's the thing about improv, right? It's like, what degree of improv? And I'm like, oh, she came up with the idea when they were filming and they did it. Like, it wasn't...
Oh, yeah. And then maybe they did 3 or 4 takes of it.
But, yeah, it works. Because this character, as much as he's not as significant, obviously, as the other 2, what you would call protagonists, it's a decent amount that we understand. They have a past, he's trying to move in, and then he just happens to be involved in this horrifying, monstrous storyline where he's like, I guess I'll use a shotgun on him. That seems like the most obvious thing. Oh, yeah, and everyone smokes in old movies as well, which is... have you heard about, like, Netflix want to prevent that from even being possible in just average movies now? They're like, don't have smokers.
Really?
And they've said, like, it's allowed for period pieces, but if you can, unless it's, like, absolutely needed for your content, don't have people smoking. And I guess it's just to reduce the cool factor that smoking has.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... I mean... What is the smoking adding to her performance in this particular scene?
Unless she's an actual smoker and wanted them, I'm not even sure why. Maybe she's nervous.
Maybe a sense of anxiety that he's causing her.
Yeah, that could work. She's got an ashtray on the table and on the little thing by there.
Yeah, she's smoking all over the place.
Yeah, and I think she's very concerned about actually getting a story, right? Because she's not in a good place. So I think it works well enough thinking about it. Like there's enough reason. But I think they'd represent that differently these days. Or not. I don't actually, because plenty of people do smoke today.
Look at that computer. It's funny, the tech is actually very like Mother in Alien.
Yes.
That just sort of bright neon text.
Oh god, here we go. So this is like when you know it's a Cronenberg film and you've watched it up to this point, you're kind of like, how is it a Cronenberg film though? And you're like, oh well,
here we go.
Slams you right in the face. It's such a like, oh my god. But again, it's not a shock if you've seen a lot of his stuff. It's a running joke in Rick and Morty, right? Like the hideous creatures are just called Cronenbergs.
Yeah. Ugh.
And then the full reveal. Gotta get them noises in as well. Oh, look at that. And obviously, the idea is like the body horror is pretty much mostly what this is going for, but even just the empathy with a baboon having to deal with that. Why is it alive?
The funny part is that that scene alone today probably wouldn't have sat well with test audiences. I mean, in 1986, the idea of animal experimentation was kind of accepted as par for the course.
Right, like in the importance of discovery.
Yeah, he just murdered that in a torturous way, that cute little baboon or whatever it was.
And it was the horror, the fact that it was still, because I feel like if it was any other filmmaker, it would be a pile of flesh. But with Cronenberg, it had to be alive, of course. It always has to be alive.
Yeah. In agony.
Yeah. Just to make us that much more uncomfortable. But yeah, it would be interesting to see, because there's probably still movies that are being made these days that are getting less publicity that do follow this genre, but like a mainstream horror movie that has that kind of stuff in it, because like a lot of mainstream horror seems to be similar these days with the whole like possessed, crazy screaming, running fast, jump scare stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it, I think a lot of people can watch it, be scared, and then come away being like, actually, that wasn't so bad. It was just a person screaming. But there's no like, oh, that's not so bad. It's like this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitive body horror, just dread and agony and internal disgust. I think there's one jump scare in this movie, and it's so telegraphed.
I mean, you could have called it its hand on that pain there, a minor jump scare. Just supposed to make us go, ooh.
Yeah. But I was thinking of The Doctor's Office, where there's a wide shot all of a sudden and a couple moments of silence.
Yeah, if you don't guess he's coming through there at that point, like,
yeah,
it's obvious, but okay.
It's kind of like Ripley in the shuttle in Alien. Why is this scene going on this long? That's something I've always remembered about this movie.
The same sets.
He has all the same pairs of clothes so that he doesn't have to make decisions. I feel like I kind of live my life that way as well.
I guess there's a degree to which I could associate with that a different way. I have a whole set of clothes that I barely care about like in terms of what they are. Rather, I just like the things I wear. In this case, obviously, he's going for the same outfit at all times because he knows this one works.
That's a very strange cut, that cut to her looking at him seductively.
Well, I always felt this was a bit jarring.
This is a... Jeez. Yeah.
You have to go from like a pragmatic discussion about what happened today to love, and it's so harshly, like there's a clear line where she's like, now I'm in love mode. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Monkey soup is such a turn on.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, maybe they could have taken a bit more time with this, but again, this film is beat. It's like it's getting things done as fast as it can, which I think can make it a very well-paced experience for people who are looking to see progression, but, it can damage it in certain ways. Also, you catch the, I saw commentary on this, like, being that his technology is betraying him. It's foreshadowing, do you see?
Ah.
Not so bad. I don't mind it. I just like the...
Not so bad.
And they do, it's not just for that. It's the nice, you get the hairs start coming through there, which is, for your first watch through, it'll be nice and like, oh dear, what does that mean?
He has computer chips in his bed. I have Ritz crackers.
I was going to say, it's kind of weird that he's just got that one chip there. Like, okay. And that dug deep, too. Like, you need to push on that for it to cut in, but all right. Maybe they were sharper back then. Oh, yeah, he has the flesh idea. This is good. Do you know what this trope is called? Is it Eureka or something, where somebody just says something casual and it becomes the important thing for the completely unrelated context?
I'm sure there's a title for it, but there's... I'm a big fan of the show Castle, which is the most rigid, formulaic television show I've ever gotten hooked on, but Nathan Fillion and Stan Akatic just have... I mean, he's Nathan Fillion, so, we all know.
Mm-hmm.
But that moment exists in almost every episode where he's having dinner with someone and they say something and it makes him...
realize the thing.
Aha! I know who the killer is.
Do you remember what he says by here?
No.
Here it comes.
Need this, I need an objective opinion.
He needs an objective opinion.
Well, I don't know how she can give that, right? Because anything she says is just going to be her own personal feelings about how the steak tastes.
I find it interesting that he wants to know about taste. It's pretty hard because I don't even know how to be objective about taste. I guess you can say sweet and sour. They're pretty ubiquitous with people.
Is this the teleported steak?
Yeah, and she describes it as it tastes synthetic, which is interesting. Because this is actually a concern you can have about this whole thing, which is, by the way, why I would never go into it myself. The idea that it deletes you and then regenerates a copy, and so you're gone.
Yeah. Yeah, and what is essence? And, I mean, that's the... Star Trek has delved into that a couple of times when it comes to teleporters. And, of course, the Prestige is very much the same...
Oh, yes.
Topic. Am I going to wake up in the tank or at the top?
Yeah, the man in the box. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, the reason why he's highlighting here that the actual machine is trying to recreate it himself, and he's not at all worried about the fact that he's willing to do it himself, which would mean that he's dead. And a new one took over. But obviously it has all of his memories. So how do you tell the difference? Got a lot of fundamental questions there that humanity's probably not ready to answer just yet.
There's lots of semantic things you get into when just watching the movie, but he fed her the teleported steak. What if it had been poisoned by the process?
Oh, absolutely. This is why I wouldn't have touched it. I'd have been like, dude, it's like we need to test a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he has a computer that breaks down the biological structure of everything to the single percentage point. I noticed that when her stocking was in there, it said biological material 0.0001, which is probably like skin flakes or any of that.
I
don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's a highlighted... Well, it's a plot hole that is also not one, depending on how you interpret it. So the idea that it combines stuff when you have multiple things in there. It's like, well, a human body has bacteria, right? So
right.
Don't we automatically just at the DNA level become that? And it's like, well, what if the machine was smart enough to just be like, anything below a threshold doesn't count? And you're like, maybe.
So is this dude also her boss?
He's her ex and her boss. Yeah, it's an awkward relationship.
That's a very weird part.
He gets really weird here, becomes the full-on, like, crazy ex-boyfriend person. But then for the rest of the film, he's much more reasonable. It's very strange. I guess he was hoping that since he was her boss, he would have a chance at regenerating their relationship at some point, but now she's with Mr. Flyman.
Well, I wonder if his arc is supposed to be sort of an inverse reflection of Brundle's, where he's all impulse and id right now for her, and is thrust in the position of being... Oh, good lord.
He has to almost be the hero. I mean, he technically is.
Yeah. And he's the one that experiences the actual kind of body destruction. He's the only one that experiences it in the same way Brundle does, with his hand.
It's not just his hand, is it?
Yeah, which kind of ties the two of them together. Stop with the monkeys!
I know, right? Do you know about the other deleted scene?
No, I don't.
With, so Brundle vomits on the leg to separate it, and then there's this, like, 10 seconds of him eating the foot. And I was just like, oh my god, of course there's that. Of course you made that scene in the middle of the finale. Well, the climax. Those things, by the way, apparently they you have to get, like, a very alpha wrangler and have the actors be very, like... They have to know that you're in control, otherwise they will go nuts. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about, like, if you actually wanted those animals on set, then it's like, yeah, you have to be manly in front of them. You'd be like, oh, what? Are they trained?
By the way, one of the other strange connections this movie has is it was produced by Mel Brooks. He liked the script and picked up the movie with his production company. Very strange Mel Brooks project.
Yeah, this is... you can't connect that in any way, can you? You're like, not seeing it. But that's the thing. We're all human. We all have different interests, and so...
Yeah. Yeah, I think the movie he produced previous to this one was The Elephant Man, which is, again, very strange and very bodily focused.
Yeah, it does not make you think Mel Brooks. Because, yeah, obviously, we probably should have mentioned this, but this is a remake of the 1958 film, The Fly. I believe it's the same name, and it's Vincent Price who made that, which we're going really far back at that point. But the interesting thing is that Cronenberg was interested in what Price thought of this film. Do you know what he says?
No.
He very much enjoyed it up to a certain point.
Would that be the fly with the human head?
Well, this is the thing. All I know is it's up to a certain point. I like to think it's like, I wonder what was his turning point, because it obviously wasn't the inside-out baboon. He managed to survive that, but...
Oh, you're talking about Vincent Price talking about this movie. Yeah.
Because, when you get to the end of this film and the fly breaking out of his body, I think that you can go a lot of ways on that. Like, I think a lot of people will just be like, this is ridiculous. But I think there's definitely a lot of people out there as well who will actually be horrified by it.
Oh, for sure. The ending of the original Fly is extremely memorable as well, but in a very different way. I can't remember. I believe it's a teleporter as well, or some other invention, but what happens in that movie is the Brundle character swaps the head of the fly. So he's walking around with a sheet covering his head, and at some point, the Gina Davis character pulls the sheet off, and he has a fly head. And the fly with his human head escaped out the window of the lab, and they can't find it to fix him and switch him back. And I believe the Brundle character dies at a certain point, and one of the other characters is sitting on a park bench, and he hears, help me, coming from the left, and he looks over, and next to him is a spider web and in the spider web is the fly with the human head as a giant spider is walking over to eat it. And the guy picks up a huge rock and crushes it, and that's the end of the movie.
Which is
campy,
comical to a degree.
Weird, comical, and kind of disturbing.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that The Simpsons, I don't know if you ever saw it, it was like season 9, but they reference both the old and the new with that.
Yeah.
Or at least, I'm pretty sure it was definitely out by the time this was, but that's in there. Bart, his head is on a fly and he gets stuck in a web, and he's like, help! But then it turns out he's bullying the spider, and he's like, I'm not actually caught in your hand. And just flies off. In the typical Simpsons fashion, they always want to have their own way with it.
Just in a bubble without being subject to the campiness and the production values of the time. That whole concept and idea is scary to me, what they set up. Obviously, an understanding of tech and genes and all of that made something much more complex in this movie, but just the idea alone, it was still scary enough to me. I still find disturbing.
Yeah, it's like I was saying, that line, once you cross the line into like you don't believe it anymore, it can be hard to sort of empathize with that feeling, but as long as you're there,
yeah,
and it can work with anything, sometimes unexpected things, it'll get you into that nice section of horror they were gunning to get you into. This is again a matter of how I feel about the whole pushing the film forward. He's like, she's going to see her boss, who she probably dates, and I'm drunk. I'm so mad I'm going to go in my teleport. Like, okay. It's still kind of adorable. He's talking to the baboon, though.
Have you ever seen Project X?
No.
It's a Matthew Broderick film about government testing that was being done on chimpanzees at the time. It's not very good, but I was just kind of struck by, man, there were a lot of 80s movies. Oh, there's the fly.
That's quite a nice reveal in this film as well, because he's so happy with the success, he doesn't check it, but when he finally checks like the details on the initial teleportation, and it's slowly revealing to us what it was that was in the machine and what the machine chose to do.
He's not a very good scientist.
No, but he did say that. He's only a project manager or whatever, right?
It's not a very clean lab. Oh, you hear the fly. Ugh. Great soundtrack.
It's Howard Shore, isn't it? Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Lord of the Rings, Aviator, the Twilight movies, but I actually like the production values on those movies, if not the movie.
That's okay.
Yeah. Twilight has a banging soundtrack. It's a terrible movie, and still one of my favorite reviews on my own channel. But the production values on that film are great.
Pity about the writing.
Pity about the writing.
But yeah, what I was saying, that's the showing the 6 limbs of the fly, because he ends up with 5, if I remember correctly, by the end of this film, because again, another deleted scene where do you remember the point in this film where he says he's got something growing on his chest? Don't know what that is. He says something like that to Gina Davis. Like, who knows what that is?
Yeah, vaguely.
That like cracks open at one point in a deleted scene, and a little leg comes out, and he's like freaked out by it and tries to rip it off, and then has to bite it off to get the rest of it off. It's just wrong as a scene, but you know what I mean? Like, that comes off, and then the other one comes out, I think, in the finale, and so he only has the 5. Unless it regrows, I'll have to keep an eye on that. But it's just more body horror, more gore, more wonderful,
man, Jeff,
classic special effects.
Jeff wasn't skipping his push-ups.
No, yeah, he's. I like to believe that he took this one very seriously. Honestly, he probably wanted this to really work.
The howler monkey jumping into his arms, I'm sure, is another symbol for the reduction of man through this process he puts himself through.
Well, interestingly, it jumps up to him a couple times, and in that deleted scene where he's created the horrible mutation thing, the teleporter opens up, and it like flings at him screaming this time around. So I figured that's what they might have been trying to go for, but obviously that scene got lost. Just so that we understand that it does typically jump up to him, but this time, you know. But I think that works as well. And yeah, the other thing, I guess, even though this whole film's about it, so it's kind of weird to praise it, but I still want to. The whole, like, the slow transition and how many degrees of change there are. They really worked hard making sure it wasn't just flipping a coin or anything.
Oh, yeah. He's got, I think, 7 different phases of makeup in the process.
And they're all horrible because...
And they're all terrifying.
Yeah, the smaller bits give us this horrible dread of what's going to happen, and when they actually, like, start happening, that's just straight up horror. Because you get the bald spots, rashes, hairs. Like, he even gets lots of little hairs all over him.
It's what I call a normal day.
You kind of, like, could you imagine reading this script and being like, yeah, this is for me?
If you're Jeff Goldblum, yeah.
I was going to say, the thing is, funnily enough, because Cronenberg he probably would get actors being like, yeah, I want to be a part of it, because he was respected in his own way, for sure. You'd think he would have had a hand in the thing, to be honest, wouldn't you? Speaking of the people who've made it as well, do you know Tim Burton was at one point going to direct this?
I mean, that makes a certain kind of sense.
It does, but I feel like we'd be looking at a completely different film.
It would be The Fly would be awesome. You'd want to be The Fly. There is a moment in this movie of him having awesome superpowers.
Yeah, there's a brief moment where he's really awesome and happy and everything's going great. And I think they did that on purpose just to give us a sense of like, hey, an up feeling.
Yeah, the high point before. And when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite scenes when he was able to climb the wall and do all the superpowery stuff like so.
Well, it's kind of the thing in a way because you could argue this is like a bizarro version of like Ant-Man. And not the same in any way because it's technology in Ant-Man, not like an actual biology thing. But let's just pretend for a second in a different universe, there is a film called, maybe don't call it The Fly, like Flyman or something, and he does the exact same thing that happens in this film, but he becomes a superhero. That's it. And he's just, his powers are, he's super strong, he can climb on walls. I was trying to think, like, what separates him from Spider-Man at that point, but you know what I mean? Like,
well, it's interesting in the age of superhero movies we're kind of living in, how this is sort of the anti-superhero movie.
Yeah.
Or rather, there's probably a reading of it in that way.
I'd say absolutely, yeah. This is one of those, like, The Boys is trying to do that. I think we're going to get a lot more of it, which is why I feel like we might be heading for a remake for this. It's only a matter of time with how many other properties are getting exhausted.
I'm always on the fence with the remake conversation. The Princess Bride went around, not because they were doing a remake, but because a producer or someone who is related to the rights of that movie said that they were considering maybe possibly doing one, and the story blew up so hard that even Carrie Ells had a tweet about, I can do that. But whenever I think of remakes, there's the Body Double.
Oh yeah, you could definitely spot those.
Yeah.
Whenever he does something that you know the normal person in the world probably can't do.
Right. Whenever I think of remakes, I think of this movie. Maltese Falcon, the one with Humphrey Bogart, was the third version of that movie.
Well, so this is the question people often will give you. So people will often say that, and it's like, so name me the newest great remake.
The newest great remake, I'd have to think about it.
Well, the problem is the ones I reference...
Probably Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, sure. Well, this is the thing. I would actually concede they're going to exist. The problem is that we end up naming stuff like The Fly, or The Thing, or even... Some people consider Lord of the Rings a remake of the attempt with the animation and stuff, and it's just like, I don't really think that's exactly what it was going for, but maybe I don't know more. Point being, you then compare, like, okay, so how many bad remakes have we had? And it's like this enormous bonfire of terrible. And so I think people are just playing the odds of, like, it's going to be bad, so don't. And that there is a sense that the older one gets tarnished in some way, which isn't necessarily true, because a lot of the time it can just draw more attention to the fact that there's a better one and you should go seek it out. And so there's an idea of, like, if we were told, because they did actually start up a chance of remaking this in 2006, but it was canned. And so the idea that it could be floating around, similarly to Gremlins 3, has been floating around for a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And so we could get it eventually, and it's like, what do you think? And it's like, if you had the power to stop it, would you? And I'm like, well, on one hand, it could be made, and it draws more attention to this film, and it'd be cool to talk about it a bit more, if it's terrible. But on the other hand, what if it was good?
Yeah.
What if it was good? And it's like, it feels so unlikely, but maybe.
And until we see it, you just really have no idea. If remakes are inevitable, I tend to try and, I suppose, emotionally err on the side of, could be The Fly, could be Battlestar, could be Total Recall. We don't know.
Everyone's forgotten that film even exists.
Yeah, right? There was a whole series of remakes like that just sort of came and went. That movie was powerfully boring.
Well, I know I watched it, and I can't remember anything that happens in it. I honestly, and I know this is silly to say, because it's like Total Recall, right? It's just and it's like, yeah, but no, seriously, like, when I think about Total Recall, I can only think of the Arnie movie, so, like...
Yeah, I just remember...
I'm trying to think of and then I had to say to myself, a Colin Farrell one, and I'm like, why is it Colin Farrell?
I remember Colin Farrell being very beautiful, and Jessica Biel was in it, and there was a car sequence. That's about all I remember.
Oh, Bryan Cranston was in it as well. I remember being happy that he was in it.
What a waste.
Oh, of course. That's happened a lot with him because he's just so great. Same with Tywin. Obviously, Charles Dance is who I mean, but he's getting hired out a lot because of Game of Thrones, but he's getting roles like, I don't know if you saw King of the Monsters, did you by any chance?
Mm-mm. Oh, no, I didn't.
He has like 3 lines of dialogue in the whole movie, and he's just army man who leads army people, and it's like, why hire him? Is it just for the trailer? It's crazy how much, like, because actors cannot save projects if you don't have a director using them properly.
Yeah.
Do flies like sugar a lot?
They do.
That explains that?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I was just thinking, like, what have I got in my memory bags for that? It's like, oh yeah, when Bart got hit as the fly version of him was eating a bag of sugar with Homer on the sofa. There's my reference. That's how I know. Yeah, and he's getting, like, hypercharged.
Yeah, I mean, and of all the actors, I think, that are properly predisposed to those kinds of babble scenes, Jeff Goldblum's definitely high on that list. The Mania.
Oh, yeah. That's another one, by the way. I'm pretty sure that one more so as well than the initial restaurant one, but it's a lot of the dialogue was coming straight from him, and a lot of her reactions were genuine. She was just like, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know how to react to any of this. Oh, he's already in, like, stage 2.
Having a bit of a breakout.
Gotta be concerned already, surely.
Do I want to have a fly level of refractory period or a face?
I was curious, because you know the idea he has to, like, if I blend with a human, I'll be more human than fly, it'll delay the horror. I'm like, I wonder what they would have done in this film if he managed to be... That's how he became a sort of serial killer. Collecting people and combining them so he can...
Putting them in his body.
Yeah, stave off the fly transformation or something. You think it definitely could have gone that way.
Well, then you're getting into other kinds of tropes like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or there's an episode of Angel, Lonely Hearts, the second episode that
yes
is sort of along those lines that I find gross and disturbing.
Oh yeah, and that other one is it season 3 where the old man is like jumping into people's bodies?
The body swapper.
Yeah.
Not my new hairs.
Oh yeah, I like that she puts her hand underneath to catch them, and none of them go to her hand. It's just flying away. It's like she's gonna have to pick them up.
No.
Yeah, you can see even the music is like, this is a bad thing.
No. Yeah.
It's like no. The thing is, I guess there is an implication that if there was no fly in the other end, then she would be fine, right?
She would be fine. Yeah.
Well, fine without the implications of whether or not she was deleted and reformed. Oh yeah, I didn't know, by the way, that these two were together when making this movie.
Huh.
And that's how she got the job.
Really?
Yeah, he suggested her, because I think he shared the script with her when he got it, and then she was like, I could play that character. And he was like, okay, and he suggested it. She went for casting, and Cronenberg liked her.
This was kind of her breakthrough role, if I remember correctly.
And it's got to be weird acting in a movie like this alongside someone you're actually dating. Really got to separate those worlds. And that's just cause for concern, face. Because this is the thing, Perfect World, I think I would be on board with a remake of this.
I mean, David Cronenberg is just such a specific voice, and Jeff Goldblum is such a specific performer. You just have to avoid the Colin Farrell problem, you know.
I think the goal should be not to recreate this film, instead to maybe try and
innovate,
do something else with the idea.
Yeah,
maybe even make a Fly 2 that ignores the Fly 2. I don't know if you can, actually. There's a lot to consider with something like that.
What's strange is the Total Recall remake stripped away most of the interesting things from Paul Verhoeven's version of it, and then didn't add anything back in. I remember there were well-executed action sequences, and that was about it.
See, I can't even remember that.
Yeah, and mostly I just have a vague impression of a car sequence, and that's about it. Cronenberg has not made a movie since 2014.
I imagine he's quite old now. Maybe he's retired. This is a scene I did actually remember, though, from when I was younger. This freaked me out to a degree when I was younger.
Oh, yes, of course.
I think I still remember me and my friends talking about, or me and my friend, because I only had one other friend who used to be able to see adult movies, or, well, R-rated movies, let's say. And yeah, we would talk about this moment because it's just like, you could feel it, I think.
Yes. Whatever soupy goo he's leaking. I think he's also entered a new stage of his makeup.
Yeah, that goo comes back once he... Oh. Bone, man. Oh, the bone. Put the bone back in.
And he takes the prize, which is the woman. Interesting.
He nearly kills her. She's lucky, though. I was actually, upon rewatching, I was convinced that she was gonna die. I couldn't quite remember what happened to her. Because, again, there's a lot they deleted from this, but I can't remember if this was an actual scene they'd created or if this was an idea, but there was supposed to be he was, like, eating some kind of rodent or something in an alleyway, and, like, someone asked if he was okay.
Yeah.
It's like an old lady or something, and he just, according to what I'd read, he just, like, vomits on her and just melts into, like, a... You know, like, just the idea that he does kill a few people. See, it's such a proto-big thing as well. It's just like, you could combine it with any animal. You're like, fly. You're like, why though? Just fly. Okay. I say that, obviously it's a remake, but still, he chose this.
One of the other Cronenberg movies that I saw way too young was Naked Lunch.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
I've definitely seen... There's something about all of his movies, his whole library. Did you ever see Existence?
I have, yeah.
That one's a weird one.
They're all weird. I mean, what is his most mainstream movie? The Fly and A History of Violence, I think.
I didn't even know that was Cronenberg, is it?
Oh, Eastern Promises. Yeah, he got a little more...
Ah, right.
Eastern Promises was great.
And so this is interesting. He's just teleported now, and nothing. This wouldn't have done anything if we assume the rules of the film was they're telling us. Because I think he was going for a boost, right? But he kind of comes across as though he thinks he's got that boost. Because I assume he got it from the fly rather than the teleporting itself.
Empathy for him collapses very quickly.
Well, this is the thing. I found it interesting that was a goal they had, because for me, I remember being just like, I don't know how much of him is left already. Because like he's clearly losing his mind. The second he starts like talking really fast to Gina Davis is already like, he's already going mad.
Yeah.
But you can still...
It's very quick.
Feel sorry for the fact that he got himself there, I suppose. Because he seems to be a very normal guy at first. He's just like, hey, I want to invent teleporting. He's like, oh, okay. Though if I had a friend doing that, I would be like, you do know the implications of this, right? You do know what's going to happen if you were successful.
Is she a prostitute?
She says in the bar that she's not, I believe. He says something like, you're going to come home with me or something. She's like, I'm not a whore. So I don't know, actually. He's got the hairs on his face. You'd think that she would have noticed that, but I guess not.
Why'd you scare her off, he says, with hairs, gooey hairs in his back and the world's scariest breakout. Oh, he's growing hairs out of his face now. Yeesh.
Oh yes, he's already holding that part of his chest. They are trying to run a little story with that.
Yeah.
It's like it feels weird, it develops, he notices, he points out to her, and then that scene, that's the big payoff for it, they ended up cutting it. I didn't see any reasoning for it other than I just assume it was just too weird. But then you wouldn't think, would you? You wouldn't think that's possible. Just look in the mirror, man. I think he does, actually.
Free and released from the burdens of conscience.
Also, that, by the way, looks great.
Yeah.
How did they do that? I'm guessing it's like foam or something, probably?
Well, there's a cut there, too, so it could have been in 2 stages. It cuts to her face as he's...
Well, it looked like at least one of them was seamless, and I wonder if it's the fact that he looks like he's punching it and they're pulling away at something, or if it's not actually made of wood. I don't know, but it looked good. It looked good.
Yeah, that was great.
I love when you watch, especially older things, because they have so much less technology to be able to use to cut shortcuts, but like just trying to figure out how you think they may have done it.
Well, I was just thinking too, I mean, there's a lot of talk about practical. Everything's swung digital so hard that now whenever a movie has practical makeup or character effects, it's touted.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't want a special edition anything in this, of course. The ending puppet looks a little silly, and that's okay. It's sort of like The Thing when the head grows.
Well, it reminds me of the end of Terminator, where, and this isn't necessarily what you're going for, but it looks like it wouldn't be too threatening. You could push it over.
Right. But the one, okay.
Oh, that. No, stop it. Nope. Oh, do you remember? I'm already thinking about. Do you remember when his teeth fall out? It's such a like. Oh,
here comes the fingernail.
Leave him alone.
Here comes the fingernail.
Ugh. Anyway.
The one type of effect in these movies that I think has not aged well are the optical effects. One of the things that stop it, sorry.
You'll get there, it's okay.
Trying to have a coherent point while he's pulling his fingernails off is very difficult.
So I mean, this film earns the horror title for sure.
Okay. I'm fine. I'm Ian, and I'm fine.
We'll find.
The optical effects were the hand-animated teleportation effects.
Right, yeah.
The electrical effects going over the howler monkey and those kinds of things. Those just have not aged well.
And they could be remastered.
Yeah, I think that kind of thing would keep the spirit of the movie while making it maybe a little more accessible for modern audiences.
You could theoretically get all these updated as well, but I don't think there'd be any need to.
No, the difference is a computer in the 1980s would look like that, right? We feel like that is grounded, and just because the movie is old doesn't mean that, there should be a modern interface on that. But the optical effects, like the lightning effects during teleportation, never looked good at the time and still don't look good now.
Also, this is the Fly's version of Crew Expendable. This moment, isn't it?
Crew Expendable?
Oh, I'm disappointed, Ian.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then the Ash standing behind her as well. I love that bit in Alien. It's great.
Bring back life form. Priority 1. All other priorities rescinded.
And it's, the moment we realize, oh no, like this is... We know this already, but I think getting it confirmed does represent a bit of a shock still.
Well, and this is kind of...
Especially for him.
His fear, he experiences a brief period of fear before he embraces it. And I think that kind of brings us back in for the last act.
Because he's kind of high on his insanity to a degree, but now he knows there's a problem.
Yeah. Oh, this is very Alien.
Yeah, this is what I meant. So this is the part where we realize that the technology practically betrayed him. It's like it ruined him when it didn't have to.
Yeah.
Because naturally he says something like it just tried to figure out a result in a very cold way. It's just like, combine them. And there's an element of like, so why does that mean he slowly turns into a fly as opposed to the other way around, as opposed to half and half? He's just like, no, that's just how it works.
Because movie. That would definitely be the moment where I ate my own shotgun.
Yeah, you're done.
Just okay, I'm done.
I think I might let it go a little bit. The fingernails have already come off. Yeah, I'd be like, no, this is not going anywhere good.
Yeah.
Because if you have a skin rash, you'd be like, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm super strong with the skin rash.
Yeah, I'm not waiting around to see what other parts of my body fall off. I'm good.
But not only does he embrace that, he has his own museum. Oh. This is what I mean about this film being like, oh, it went so much further than I imagined so many people would ever have expected it to. I have to wonder what this film is like for someone of a modern audience who's never seen it before. And I know that because we're doing a commentary on it, some people are going to watch this for the first time in my audience and be like, what the hell is this?
I kind of wonder if for a modern audience it would be too slow.
I always felt it kept moving pretty fast, but maybe. And I also think that the film may trick you into thinking that each stage is kind of, oh, it's just not going to get worse than this, you know?
Yeah.
But it keeps getting worse.
And him calling her is him reaching out for help. Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is almost the midway point, if you will. Because he's still rational.
Yeah.
And sees it as an issue, but I think it's the next time we see him after this time, he's embraced it. She like hugs him in this scene, and I was always just like, stay away. I don't know what's going to happen.
There's a curious question. An animal that is purely driven by impulse, are they capable of an act of suicide? I mean, if he's more and more consumed by the
fly
impulses of the insect, is that where he loses the capability to make that kind of choice, which is directly in opposition to the impulse to survive?
Yeah, I don't think any id-focused animal would be. I'm trying to think of a scenario where.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that too. You know, there's moths flying into a flame, but other than that, under a certain level of the animal kingdom, you would think that that kind of activity or behavior just disappears.
Especially, you combine that with the fact that he's very much seeming to enjoy it, like he's just life as a fly, almost. Though, at the end of the film, he is trying to work away from it, so the idea is that he's still got some level of not embracing fully.
I'm just now picturing the costume designer going crazy with cake glaze and ketchup bottles on his shirt there.
Oh, do you remember this? It's coming up soon. I'm not sure what it is. He does...
I thought it was on camera. Oh, okay.
And here it comes. And she didn't know that was going to happen when they were filming. And so they kept her genuine reaction in, which is stuff that... See, why would you hug him after that?
I don't know that I would hug him.
Stay away. That's on his ear lobbed off side as well.
I'd be like, all right, bro, let me call a dermatologist. We'll get you straightened out. And then...
Let me call something. The Ghostbusters.
Brutal.
Yeah, this is, you could argue this is the scene he goes from being the crazy guy back to, okay, something pragmatically should happen. Because I actually, I think most people would feel bad for him when he gets his limbs.
Well, of course.
No, because like...
you're talking about this guy. Yeah, he becomes a strangely empathetic character by the end of the movie from where he started. And
Yeah.
that's why I think it's interesting how his arc is inverted from Brundle. And they're both sort of tied together through her.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a connection there. But like he seems to be what I would call purely supportive / pragmatic for the rest of the film now. Like he asks her what she wants to do, tries to advise where he can, but basically just does anything she says. When that's not necessarily what we were seeing in the first half, so. Because, like, I gotta be honest with you, I would recommend that she doesn't go to this place anymore.
I was going to say, and she goes back to visit him.
Well, so this is the idea, I'm guessing, is that she really is kind of in love with him, which is probably another part to the film that could have been better.
Yeah.
Because it's so rushed.
That needed to be established a little more successfully.
So this is another one of those how did they do it sort of things, and I'm guessing it's another set that they flipped.
Yeah, they had a rig.
To look like it was, yeah. I love it, though. It looks great.
Oh, yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah, there you go. I don't know. We don't get the payoff for that, which, honestly, in a weird way, I kind of wish they left it in, because it's so perfectly lined up. And I mean, there's already horrible things in this anyway, so, it's not like you're protecting anybody from anything. Oh, look at those teeth as well. And somehow it becomes worse when it has that name. This new horrifying creature.
And somehow he makes that oddly charming.
Oh, yeah.
That little bit of dialogue, while being absolutely...
He seems like he's still reachable.
Yeah, he still he seems kind of adorably terrifying.
Definitely seeing the bright side.
That's Jeff Goldblum.
And she's almost like, okay, let's do this. It's just kind of like, oh, I thought we were entering into the he's a hideous monster phase, but it's like, no, not yet. We're still not even there yet. Like, in terms of attitude, I guess.
Yeah, this was Gina Davis's breakout movie. Before this, she was in Fletch. After this, she did Beetlejuice, and then it was kind of off to the races from that point.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to kids.
I didn't know that's how flies actually eat.
Yeah.
But yeah, if ever there was news about this being remade, people would demand the physical prosthetics and stuff, otherwise you've betrayed the movie,
Well, I think it would be sort of Marvel movie-esque where they do some combination of digital.
Well, Perfect World is, I would try and advise the people that you don't want them to not do any computer work, because some of the best stuff is stuff you don't even know is there.
Exactly.
Oh, this is... She realizes she's pregnant. And now I'm remembering the nightmare sequence. Which, funnily enough, is what I would call reminiscent of Aliens, the opening. The sterile room and well, you could call it a birth, but I read as well that this was like played as a double bill with that film. And they are, it's funny how I think a lot of people might say like, oh yeah, they work together. I should be like, no. There's two very different experiences.
Yeah, there's one gun in this movie. It goes off once. This is not an action film.
And to be honest with you, when it goes off, he's lucky that saved her from the, because who knows what it could have done, separating whatever wires or breaking them to a certain degree. I think it almost seems natural to have a sequel with knowing she's pregnant.
Well, of course. They just didn't really do anything with it.
Yeah. But I think you could probably argue that his motivation to encourage her abortion as well could be absolutely selfish.
Yeah, well, I mean, as someone who spends a lot of time talking about these kinds of things, there are some gender issues with the movie, which we don't necessarily need to get into, but they're definitely standing out to me here and there.
Do you mean how he's, like, entirely motivated by the fact that he just wants to be with her?
Yeah, well, and the way these two men sort of dominate her life, and she's sort of not an active player. You know, it's very 1986 of a time and place. Oh, good Lord. Okie dokie.
Oh, that's quite the visual. And
Yowza.
yeah, I was just gonna say, it's funny how Alien, so well known for the horrifying nature of the chest burster.
Yeah.
Like, the Aliens one is much more, let's say, reduced compared to Alien 1, but, like, it's got nothing of that for freaking you out, I would say, because, like, the Aliens one comes across as much more of a reserved nightmare, which actually I think suits the film better.
The chest burster?
The opening, if you remember.
Or are you talking about Aliens?
Yeah, sorry, Aliens.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think there's a point in that where you very clearly understand it's a dream sequence where they play this straight until she actually wakes up. But there's a bit of slow motion and surreal imagery used in the dream sequence in Aliens that, to me, kind of gives it away.
Yeah, sure.
This is a bit more of just dead-on yowza.
I was going to say as well, in terms of her agency, she does go against both Brundle and the guy's recommendations.
Yeah, I'd have to spend some time thinking about it. I just feel like there's something there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, here it comes. Why?
Stop with the teeth!
And yeah, so this is the, again, in terms of like just the breakdown, so he goes from almost dreading all of these changes. With this one, he's like, yeah, that makes sense, because these useless now. And he's embracing the evolution.
And again, looks kind of cute in a terrible way, with the big gummy smile.
Do you like the whole, they've given him contacts where one of the pupils is much larger than the other?
Huh.
The asymmetry on him, it's just a disaster.
The parts collection.
Yeah, but I think that they are designed to make us wonder what they are.
It's probably a good thing that we're not actually streaming video for this commentary either, because...
Oh, this is the thing. I will be choosing the screenshots carefully for this.
I'm just sitting here in a constant state of cringe. My whole face is just, okay.
Well, this is the thing. I'm wondering if this is possibly the peak movie for that feeling for me, because, like, you know, like Hostel and movies like that, they don't do it. I get a little bit, in a weird way, put into this sense of just like, yeah, you're slicing the intestines out, you're pulling them, you're wrapping around stuff, good for you, you figured it. But this one seems to... It's doing stuff that maybe it's to do with the fact that it all makes sense in terms of what the storyline is.
Yeah, I think it's also grounded in characters that we actually cared for to begin with, and is logically motivated for the most part.
And no one's doing it to him. It's happening.
Yeah. He did this all to himself.
Yeah, obviously he didn't volunteer for the fly part of it, but, you know.
But bad scientisting.
Yeah, and
this is why clean rooms are a thing, buddy.
It's definitely important that we've got so many different famous films trying to address, like, man needs to be careful with machine.
Sure. It's funny. I mean, there is you could say there are some parallels here in the message to Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Brundle was just so concerned with whether or not he could, he didn't stop to wonder if he should.
If only he listened to himself.
Have you ever heard of fly politics? Neither have I.
This is what I mean. He's kind of... his mindset is almost something to address in every scene, in terms of, I wonder where he's at right now, how much of him is there.
Yeah. I mean, if she didn't already, this is the point where you hold your hands up and back out of the room slowly. But I think we're supposed to buy all it, as you said, based on the love story, which is why I wish that it had been built up a little bit more, other than the one scene.
Well, this is the thing. It's if it's 1.5 hours, like, you could have had an extra half hour for I don't know how I'd place it exactly, but the main goal would be developing their relationship, probably.
Yeah.
A lot of horror movies like to be short, though. And when I say short, I mean an hour and a half. Like, so many horror movies are an hour and a half.
Yeah. We get him eyeballing her bare leg, and then she falls for him.
Yeah, it almost... I think there would be an argument to be made that they're just both having a fling, but then it turns into more than that, and there's no real reason for it until it's already happening.
Yeah, I mean, this is not fling levels of commitment.
No, this is... I would have been out when he was on those walking sticks. I'd have been like, nah, you need to be either... Like, I could maybe help get you to a doctor, but other than that, I'm out. This is horrifying.
I mean, like, people end a fling based on what's in someone's medicine cabinet. The guy starts sprouting hairs out of his back and climbing walls.
Vomiting acid to consume food. Like, I'd be concerned.
As they say, a bit much.
Oh yeah, I think I would have been like, guys, not here, because he's just up there.
Yeah. You saw the wall climbing bit?
You always gotta wonder with stuff like that. It's like, oh, how long did those prosthetics take? So much sitting in a chair.
I'm sure he started before the sun was up, and they're filming at night, so that's probably a long day.
But worth it, though, because as much as we have said that a lot of people will be completely unaware of this, the people who are don't exactly hold it in a negative regard at all. Like, this is that film.
For some reason, he looks vaguely familiar.
I thought I knew this guy, but I really can't place him anyway.
One of those actors, the Doctor, yeah.
I like how much, funnily enough, there's a lot of overlap with, like, 80s movies. You can find lots of supporting actors that pop up in loads of different places.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There were many Richard Jenkins. Even Richard Jenkins was Richard Jenkins.
Yes.
Which is Veastwick, which is one of my favorite 80s movies. He plays a pivotal, oh yeah, that guy, role in that movie.
He's in Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah.
That's not a movie I'd recommend you.
Yeah. I don't do well with horror. I love Kurt Russell, but I've heard that movie contains...
I did like it a lot, but holy crap, there's a scene in that movie that actually made me go like, wow.
Yeah, I've heard there's a sequence that is next level disturbing. There's the shot. And again, she's reaching for him.
Yeah, she seems to be okay with this, almost.
Come on now. Yeah, I haven't really put my finger on it, and I don't know if...
Also, he just, like, cut himself. That doesn't go anywhere.
He cuts his hand, that doesn't go anywhere?
No, it doesn't. But my point is, like, why have him cut his hand?
I mean, if we're reaching for connections, it could be the chip in the back, just a little bit of foreshadowing.
I guess you could stretch it into he's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
I'm going super pragmatic right now. I'm thinking when they're filming it, we need to have you put your hand there and we're gonna put some red stuff on it. You're gonna get cut. And I'd just be like, why? Can't he just go into the room? Yeah, and this is the turns into villain scene.
Yeah, there's a very famous, well, not, I don't know about very famous, but there's an episode from early in Buffy the Vampire Slayer where one of the characters falls in love with a demon on the internet. Don't hold it against the show. But there's a scene later in the episode where the robot is professing, the demon has made a robot body for itself, and it is professing its love for one of our main characters. And she's saying, you don't love me, you lied to me, after he's just murdered people in front of her. And some of the logic of Gina Davis and that scene right there kind of felt a little bit like that. She seems very empathetic and moved by his experience, and I think I would be more have a response of the screamy variety.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it probably stands out to you as well because of the fact that it's kind of the core of the movie. In order to push everything where it needs to go, you need her to be at that point with him.
Yeah.
There it is. There is something I noticed that I did actually quite like. As he's walking around, there's a little shot where you see the shadow above him.
Oh, and is it Seth?
Well, I think that's the implication, but it's soon before he jumps onto him, so. Sounds like he should have been more careful.
Lots of trash all the way around. Where a fly would be living.
I think it's the shot we just saw. Like, it's gonna be that same shot, but it'll be later. But yeah, like the whole, we'll teleport me, you, and the baby will become one. It's just like, oh. Oh, here it is, I think.
Yeah, there.
It's nice and subtle, because that was not accentuated.
That's pretty good. It's almost like a fly out of focus flying in front of the lens. Very cool.
Say goodbye to your arm. If only he'd fired. He nearly had it.
Okay. Yowza.
And look at his reaction. He seems to be enjoying it.
Well, he's yeah, the scientific sort of fascinated reaction.
Which adds the creepy.
The bones are showing.
Oh, it's horrible. No.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
I realize now that a lot of this commentary is just going to be grossed out. It's Halloween, people.
Oh. Yeah.
You took your time. You could have cut it a little earlier.
She's so calm. A monster just barfed on her ex-boyfriend's body parts.
Melting them. Oh no, here he comes.
Yeah, I guess if I have any issue with this movie, it's her character. Not Gina Davis. She's terrific. I mean, she is selling this.
Oh, she's doing what she can with it.
Yeah, she's doing what she can. It's great. But again, 1980s.
He's also honestly fantastic in this film, and it's
He's so good.
how do you this kind of thing wouldn't get considered for like Oscars or celebration stuff like that. It's only going to get appreciated like per actor and filmmakers, I guess.
Well, I would be interested to see what won Best Makeup this year.
I think it was this. I believe this film got Best Makeup Oscar, but I can't remember if I read it somewhere that the people felt that he should have gotten the Oscar for this film, but it's just not something that happens. It's horror films don't get Oscars for actors as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Seems like there's a lot of unfair rules when it comes to that, but hey. Kind of like as well that in the beginning of this film, he points out that he has that third one, and it's like a prototype or whatever, but the only reason he has it is so that they can do this ending. But it comes across in the beginning as like, oh, that makes sense that he would have an old version, I guess. Like a prototype. Oh, here we go.
Ah!
Just Cronenberg, the fact that the jaw was still moving when it was separated. Here it all comes. The eyes, when they fell out, were goo. It's just horrible. Oh, the slaps of the meat as well. This is what I mean, like, I don't know that anything... It can't even, like... That element of it can't age. It'll be that good forever.
Yeah, that's very visceral. Yeah.
And obviously it's their job now to show as little of this creature as they can, because like one big wide shot for a decent 5 seconds will ruin it. Standing still, it could do well enough.
That looks great.
Yeah, but when it's walking, it's like, ew.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely a like, do it, buddy. Do it. Save the day.
Just get it done.
Because that looks a bit weird, but what can you do at this point?
Is this Stan? I wonder if this is Stan Winston again. Yeah, I think that is properly confusingly gross and horrifying.
Yeah, I think they pretty much nailed it. But see what I mean? Like, it's good that this did what it did, because there's a lot of things that could have done.
That's a good shot, buddy.
Nah. And then this is the just ultimate punishment, suffering death that he could have gotten. Because you think about everything that's happened in this film in terms of the horrors that he's had to go through, and this is how it ends.
I mean, I wonder, too, if the Howler Monkey bit is a little bit of foreshadowing for this. I mean, what he did to that animal and how it sort of became the ugly mess is a bookend to this. Whether or not that's intended, to some degree, we were talking about how that scene maybe doesn't hold up today, or if an audience...
how an audience would react to it, yeah.
How an audience would react to that. You know, him kind of falling out as the gruesome mess in this scene is fusion of Brundlefly and Telepod.
Oh. See, that's perfect as well, because it sets us up. We know what we're about to see.
Yeah.
And yet it's still horrifying. But I was going to say, what do you think about him dragging the gun to his head?
I think it's one of the most memorable bits in the movie. It's terrific.
Oh, he knows what he is. It's so far gone.
Yeah. Somehow, whatever that thing is pulling itself across the floor, we managed to feel bad. And it's partly Gina Davis's performance, where she goes when he holds the gun against his head.
Look at
brings
that.
it, sells it, makes it all go. But yeah, I think that's terrific.
You haven't still haven't played Soma yet, right? But without spoiling anything, the combination of technology and flesh, like, it immediately brings me back to Soma, seeing something like that.
See, but again, like, what makes this scene work is also kind of the problem with my problem with her character, which is it looks like she's about to hug the slimy pod monster.
It's like, no, please help him. he needs help right now.
I miss soundtracks like this. That didn't, I mean, sort of famously now, soundtracks are intended to be a brushstroke in the background. And this soundtrack is just right up there.
Oh, this is one that, there's a lot of soundtracks that elevate, right? Like the material instead of exist.
Yeah.
And then I always felt this was odd. I don't know about you, but that's it. That's the end. There's no
No resolution. Well, that is the resolution. Oh, Chris Wallace.
I sort of assumed myself that we'd get a him in hospital and her sitting, maybe contemplating something, but it's like, no, that's it.
Yeah, so the year this was released, it was, as you mentioned, in direct competition with Aliens and Poltergeist 2. It was not nominated for any awards, or at least not for special effects.
It should. Like this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It didn't win special effects. It did win best makeup, but...
Oh, okay.
And I get Aliens. There were only 3 movies nominated for special effects. Aliens and Poltergeist 2 and something else.
Yeah, alien special effects are very good.
I get that one, I suppose.
I love the Queen alien.
Oh, yeah, terrific. Yeah, that's stiff competition. This movie is terrific, but Aliens is kind of next level when it comes to visuals.
This is such almost an odd movie where it stands. It's this, I don't know if you'd call it a cult classic, because a lot of people are very aware of it, but it's it stands above a lot of horror in its genre, being
right.
Body horror, but it's also forgotten about quite consistently.
Yeah, it doesn't, like we started with, it doesn't transcend the way Alien did, or The Shining, or those sort of horror movies that people who don't like horror movies choose to go see.
Yeah, and it feels like it was getting there, but it didn't quite make it. And I wonder what do you think the missing pieces were? And I actually think that improving that relationship may have been something that was needed.
That would touch it up. It's also very gross.
Yes. This is the thing, I use the word weird because I think a lot of people are just like, why would you do that? Not even like how horrible it is, but why?
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering Alien, because I think a lot of people might have that reaction to that as well, but it's just that, I don't know, I think the alien aspect gives you license to be that weird.
Yeah.
Or at least in many people's eyes to a degree. But yes, that's The Fly.
That's The Fly.
Happy Halloween.
I feel like I need a shower.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, so this will be the third commentary, like I said. We'll try and get some more out in the future. Let me know what you guys thought of both the commentary itself and my new guest, of which you can find him on his channel, Passion of the Nerd. There's going to be a link in the description. Just follow that up if you're interested in what he had to say. And, well, you'll be seeing more of him in the future, I hope.
Well, I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Absolutely no problem. Anything else you want to say before we sign out?
I think I'm going to get a massage.
All right. Again, happy Halloween. Good night, everyone.